Okay. Okay, once we have our plug follower tool in position, to remove the cylinder, we're going to have the key in. To remove the plug, we're going to have the key in it to make sure all the pins are on the shear line so it'll slide out. So what we've got to do is insert our key into the lock. Now we could have done this before we remove the back plate, or you can do it after. It's up to you. Just be careful you don't push the plug out. We don't want it falling out without the... Now to push this plug out, we're going to have the key in it to get all the pins on the shear line. So at this point we can put the key into the lock. Now if you prefer, you could always put the key in earlier. Just be careful when you're working with the plate on the back here that you don't accidentally push that plug out. Because once the key is in there, the plug will slide out fairly easily. So what we want to do is take our plug follower tool, we line up our notch with the tab on the plug, and basically all we have to do is slide the plug right out. Okay, once we have the tool lined up with the notch, then it's really just a matter of sliding the plug out by pushing the tool into the lock. Now when we do this, we want to make sure that our pins are up. See pins here in the top. So when we slide out, the pins don't go flying. You can see it slides right out. Now this part of the lock, what we want to do is keep that plug follower in there. Don't let that plug follower fall out. If that plug follower falls out, then what's going to happen is all your top pins and springs are going to come out, and we're going to end up rebuilding the lock. Now, as long as that plug follower stays in, then our top pins, springs will all stay in place, and we won't have to worry about it. Now if we look at the plug, we can see our bottom pins right here in the... Now if we look a little closer at the plug, we'll see our bottom pins that are all located in the holes that are in the plug. Notice there's an extra hole here. In quickset locks, most of them have 6 holes that are drilled into the plug, but the quickset combination only uses 5 of those, so the one on the end here is usually left blank. So that's why if you take a lock apart, a quickset lock, you normally see that last pin is empty. Now the other thing you notice is we have our key in the plug, and you can see that all these pins line up flush at the top. See how that's all flush and even. So that allows the shear line to be right in line for all the pins, and that's what allows us to turn this plug in the lock. If one of these pins was up or down in the hole, the pins would jam in the lock then and wouldn't allow it to turn, which is what happens if you don't have the right key in the lock. You can see as we move the key in and out, you can see the pins moving. If we were to take the key right out, you can see all the pins are different depths. But as we put the key into the lock, what we'll see then is we'll get all the pins will rise up and be all nice and flush in the top here. Now to change the combination, what we would do is we can just basically take the key out, we can dump out the pins, and then what we can do is reload new pins into the lock for our new combination. Well, once we put the new pins in the lock, we can make a key to fit it, and before we even put the lock together, we can kind of check to make sure we got it right, because if we put the key in, into the lock, all the pins should be lined up on the shear line. If they're not, then we got something wrong. Either the key's not cut right, or you have the wrong pin in the lock. Okay. Okay, at this point what we have done is put new bottom pins in the lock, so we have a different key combination now. So once we have the pins in, you can see the left hole here is left blank. We have the other 5 pins in. We've also made a key to fit this new combination. And we can double check it before we put the lock together by putting the key in, and we can see that they all do in fact line up nice and flush on the top. Now, to put the lock back together, it's basically the reverse of taking it apart. What we're going to do is get our mortise cylinder here, make sure the plug follower stays in here, make sure it doesn't come out. And what we want to do is line the tab back up in the plug follower, and then we can slide this in. And be careful, keep a little tension on the plug follower so it doesn't bump it right out easily. And just slide it right back together. And you can see our plug is back in here. And what we can do from now is put the tab back on, put the screws back in. Make sure you hold this in until you get that on, because it'll slide right back out on you. So you want to make sure you hold pressure in here, attach our retaining tab back on here with the 2 screws, tighten it up, and then you're all set. Now you have a mortise lock that has a new key combination.